Let me just tell you a little bit about Mark. He's in our club, but from Philly, and some of you from out of town. But I'd like to say that even though Mark's from Philadelphia, he liked exhibiting. And since 2008, he's shown 18 different single and multi-frame exhibits. His exhibit, Boston Postal History to 1851, won the multi-frame Champion of Championships at Grand Rapids in 2015. It was nominated for the Grand Prix National at the New York World Stamp Show in 2016. And I can say when our bus landed, the first person I saw when I walked into the New York Coliseum was Bill Schultz. He says, "Here, come, you got to see Mark's exhibit." And he pointed me to the exhibit hall.
He's my publicist.
Yeah, no, that was really neat. Mark is a philatelic judge and a member of the Committee on the Accreditation of National Exhibitions and Judges, abbreviated as CANEJ. Mark is currently director of the Boston 2026 World Stamp Expo, trustee of the Philatelic Foundation, vice president of the Institute for Analytic Philately. Is that because you're a chemist?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm what you call a lapsed. I'm a lapsed chemist. I stopped being a chemist in 1976.
Well, what do they call it? Executive chemistry, right? When you move up.
Chemist emeritus.
There we go. Vice President of the American Association of Philatelic Exhibitors, a director of the U.S. Philatelic Classic Society, and member extraordinaire of the Philatelic Society of Lancaster County and the Greater Philadelphia Stamp Collectors Club. Mark's written articles for the Chronicle, the London Philatelist, the CCP, the Congress Book, and others. He won the Tapling Award for the presentation at the Royal in London on the Boston Postal History, and the Lee Medal from the Royal, and the Richard F. Winter Cup from the U.S. Philatelic Classic Society, first two-part article on the New York Postmaster Provisional Stamp in the London Philatelist. Not sure what Mark likes the most, exhibiting or talking about exhibiting and then collecting, but I guess we'll find out tonight. And I think Mark, when I was telling Bill, why aren't you exhibiting? I said, I'm too old, too crippled, too fat. And he said, Mark retired after you, and he's just started then. Didn't he? You've only been what? 15 years at this?
I started exhibiting in 2008.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
I was collecting before that, but yeah.
Very impressive. Yeah. And how did you get into the Virginia Dare?
Well, I was, as a judge, I was often called upon to judge first day cover exhibits.
Okay.
And I really didn't understand them that well, despite the judge's manual and all the stuff you have to read. So I thought, well, maybe the best way to learn that is to do one. So I looked around for an interesting stamp, and I picked this one.
I think that's very good. Well, I will tell you what then, without any further ado, I hope everybody will join me in welcoming Mark. I will do the screen share. And then Mark, you just tell me when you want me to advance, and then
appreciate that very much.
Keep your line open, and the others, if we will mute.
Okay, can you expand that, please?
Yeah, how's that? That's good. And I will do.
If you can expand it a little more, fine. But otherwise, that should work.
No, I'm going to go to slideshow.
Oh, okay, good.
How's that? That look good? Okay.
That looks great. Thank you. This is an old painted woodcut of Roanoke Island, which sits right next to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. If you can see, I guess you cannot see my cursor, but on the right-hand side you can see the ship that brought the voyagers into Roanoke Island and dropped them off there. So next slide. So the way I'm going to organize this is I'm going to give you some background on the stamp. Then I'm going to talk to you about the stamp itself, design, etc., typical of a traditional exhibit. Talk about the official first day of use cancels and the unofficials, despite the fact that they weren't supposed to issue them until August 18th, 1937. Some of them got out early. Then in first day cover exhibits, you tend to focus a lot on the first cachets of cachet makers. Every stamp provides an opportunity for a new artist to get started in cachet making. And usually you separate those out in a first day cover exhibit. This is an unusual first day cover exhibit because this is organized thematically, We're talking about a human being. So it's really sort of easy to talk about, birth to death and even pre-birth and post-death, and provides a nice flow for the exhibit. Then as an inveterate postal historian, I'll end up with domestic and foreign usages of this stamp on cover. Next. Now, I mentioned it, Roanoke Island is bordered on the Outer Banks, and it's an island in what's now called Dare County, but I dare say it wasn't called Dare County at that time. The Queen Elizabeth decided that she wanted to see America colonized, so she granted a charter to Sir Walter Raleigh in 1578 to try to colonize territories, quote unquote, unclaimed by Christian kingdoms. I don't know about other kinds of kingdoms. They tried 3 times and were successful on the 3rd time, finally, with 117 people landing in July of 1587, led by Governor John White, who was the grandfather of the yet to be born Virginia Dare. She was born either a month or 2 after they landed and became the first English person born in America. Next. Now, there was a disagreement as to what they were going to celebrate, although not when they were going to celebrate. They were going to celebrate the landing of sorts, but this senator, a conservative senator, and somebody who didn't like FDR very much, wanted to commemorate the anniversary of the founding of Roanoke Colony. Next slide. But FDR decided he wanted to celebrate the birth of the baby, make this more of a human story. Not only did he want to celebrate it, but he decided what color the stamp was going to be, what shape the stamp was going to be, and what rate the stamp was going to be. And you can see his drawing on the right-hand side with the actual stamp above it, and his signature. If you look carefully, and you can't with this small, but you can see a man, a woman, and a baby in there, and 5-cent rate, and down below, baby blue. Now, most stamps were domestic and 3-cent rates. Most stamps were rectangular, not square. And when they were 5 cents, they were ultramarine blue, generally, not baby blue. But as noted, FDR specified baby blue. All these combined to make this a fairly unusual stamp of the period, which attracted me to trying to do a first day cover on it, a first day exhibit on it. Next. So here is a drawing that was done by William Roach, a Philadelphia artist. I'll highlight a Philadelphia artist. And he used Roosevelt's drawing as a guide, but did this much more detailed, and it's a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful drawing with the mother and child and father standing behind him, carrying a rifle to protect them all. Now, both this drawing and the Roosevelt sketch are in the National Postal Museum, which means there's no way I could steal it out of the museum without somebody knowing where it went. Next. Of course, as with all stamps, there are essays that are done by various artists to try to create a look for the stamp. 2 out of the 3, these are the only 3 essays known, I believe. 2 out of 3 had the oval that was in Roche's drawing. I prefer that anyway. I think the circle doesn't, to me, it doesn't come across as well. But you'll see the 5 cents up and down. You'll see a few of the other things. And if you go to the next frame, you'll see what the final design looked like. And you see it's the oval. It's the husband and wife, just as it was in Roche's drawing. And the 5 cents in U.S. postage vertically, the others both had 5 cents, but you have to have U.S. postage on a U.S. postage stamp. So that balanced it off nicely. And it's a really lovely pastel blue. Now this is a die proof. There are only 2 die proofs known, one large and one small. And I'm putting a bounty on anyone who can find me one, because I'd love to put it on the title page of my exhibit. Next. One of the things first day cover exhibitors like to do is find material with the signers of all the signature of the designers and the artist. You can see on the left the block of 4, the plate block of 4. Would have been less crowded if they used a plate block of 6, but William Roach was the artist. Then you have Schrage, Arndt, and Weeks, the design, the frame and designer and engraver. And then on your right have a very unusual, interesting cover with all the designer and engraver's signatures and the address done in gold ink. And this is, you see these every once in a while. I'm not sure it was done just for this stamp, but whoever did these, that's their signature in gold, the use of gold ink. Next. Oh, by the way, that was a second day. That is a second day of use. While the first day of use is August 18th, the first day the stamp was issued from Washington, D.C. was the following day, which is typical for stamps. Next. This is the layout. 4 panes of 48 stamps each, 6 by 8. There's only, by the way, there's only one variety, which is a small mark in one of the bottom left stamps. I can't remember which position. It might be 46 in that bottom left pane. There were 5 plates, but only 4 were used. So you only see 4 plate numbers on any of these stamps. And there were 25 million stamps produced. So they're not difficult to find. Finding them on certain covers and on certain quality is one thing, but they're easy stamps to find. Next. Now, since this stamp, there is a prototypical first day of issue cancel. 2 lines above, 2 lines below, and the first day of issue in the middle. The previous stamp, which was the Northwest Territory, had a very similar cancel, but it had 7 lines, and it sort of crowded into the words first day of issue. So this was the first time this was used. And I think it's a much cleaner cancel. This is on a particularly nice hand-painted cover with the word Croatoan, and I'll return to that later. As I mentioned, August 18th, 1837. Now there were additional. You can go for it. Yeah, there were additional first day cancels used that did not have the words first day of issue. There were 2 types. One that was suitable for canceling 1 to 2 stamps. The other, which was suitable for canceling a multiple. And you can see the CDS is the same. It's just the extension of the lines that differs. Next. Now, interestingly, the first day of use was August 18th, and you have some other cities that used it on 18th. This was the only one I could find or heard of that pressed the button even earlier on August 17th. So I suspect these stamps were shipped out several days early to various post offices. They were told not to issue until the 19th, but not everybody followed those instructions. This is a very nice cover sent by a commercial photo studio on the 17th of August from San Jose, California. Next. Now we have several unofficial first day of cancels. You can have, I think there's sort of 2 ways you can have first day cancels. On the first day of issue in Manteo, North Carolina, you could go in and buy the stamps. You could then travel around visiting other post offices, put them on letters and have them cancel those letters. And I think that's an example is up top. But obviously Claremont, Wyoming is a little further away. So this is probably an example where they got them. One of 2 possibilities. They got them early and they issued them on August 18th. Or it is possible that they backdated them after the 18th to the 18th. I tend to think that's probably less likely, but I don't know. The top one is particularly nice. That's Grandy. That's the cachet maker. He posts at his namesake town. And the story is he did drive around and visit a number of post offices in the area and sent them out from there. And this is one of 10 known, and it's especially nice because it has a signature. The bottom one also has a signature, but that's the signature of the postmistress, I should say, Edna Vaughn. I like that. I think it's cool to have a signature of a postal person and the fact that it's a postmistress. Next. Two, I think, cooler unofficial first days. This one on the right is a beautiful illustrated mail from Billings, Montana. It's unique. Issued again on the 18th of August, one day before they were legally supposed to issue it. But this is very pretty. The bottom is also neat because it's a hand-drawn illustration of the baby and probably on a rug near the fireplace in the home of the Dares. And it's also unique, sent from Ilion, New York, and nobody knows who actually did this. Next. Now, this is a first cachet. This is, as I said before, budding artists use opportunities to highlight their work. And they often do cachets for first day covers. This one was done by Herbert Schatz. He did 3 first cachets for this particular stamp. They're all similar in content, color combinations. Again, like the artist we talked about earlier, he lived in Philadelphia, and he only had 10 months to live after the stamp was issued. This is a lovely cachet of Sir Walter Raleigh. There were 17 known first cachets. 23 known. I've been lucky enough so far to find 17 of those 23, and they're in my exhibit. Next. 2 more first cachets done by the same person, Mrs. G. Stratton, using essentially copies of the artist's drawing and different coloring of them. I think these are lovely. This is probably the most common rendition of the family and baby using the artist's drawing. And the top one, I don't know where the top one was sent to, but it's obvious that the bottom one was sent to Philadelphia. Philadelphia pops up a lot in this presentation. Now notice you have both different official first day cancels here. You have actually you have a mixture. The one on the bottom has the typical small CDS plus first day of issue between lines. The top one, you have a mix. You have the large CDS with the extended lines, plus it looks like it's an overlay of the first day of issue hand stamp. I've never seen that before or since. Next. 2 more. The top one is the Philatelic press. There are different varieties of these with different addresses at the top, on the top of that sort of tombstone. Very attractive. And the bottom is a Thomas Clark cachet. It's a little cruder, but all hand done. But unfortunately, have no details. He sent this to himself. I don't know how many he sent, so I don't know how common this cachet is. Next. So let me talk about the thematic approach. I thought sort of decided to mix thematics with first day cover because we're talking about the life of the living individual. So we start off with Raleigh, who sponsored the voyage. Then we go into cachets that evoke the voyage to Roanoke, then the landing of the colonists, the birth of Virginia Dare herself, cachets of her and her parents, cachets of her baptism, I think 6 days later. Then we had this interesting issue of not having enough food. Now I'll preview this. They were supposed to land inland, but the pilot of the boat stopped at Roanoke Island and they got off, and he didn't let them get back on. So they had to stay on Roanoke Island. I suspect there was less natural food there. They didn't have a lot of wherewithal to grow their own. So fairly soon, Virginia Dare's grandfather had to travel back to England to get supplies. Then the colony was lost, and we don't know what happened to it. There is that tree with Croatoan etched into it. And the question is, did they all die, or did Virginia Dare grow up there? And finally, we get away from visuals, and there's a lot of cachets that quite nicely tell the story of the lost colony in words. And finally, memorials, some of which can be seen on the renovation of the site of the first colony. Next. So here's Sir Walter. He sponsored the 3 voyages to establish the first English settlement in North America. This is one of 3 different renditions of that particular design. There are that are different colors, but they're also different cachets focusing on Walter Raleigh. This one was produced by the Washington Stamp Exchange, designed by Leo August, and with the artist R. Dyer, and done via letterpress. One of the things you like to do when you have cachets is you have to tell people how they were printed: letterpress, engraved, thermograph, etc. Next, please. This cachet sort of shows the voyage to Roanoke from England. The ship crossing the Atlantic and getting to North Carolina. They were supposed to establish the city of Raleigh in Chesapeake Bay. Of course, as I said, they were left stranded on Roanoke Island. This cachet is from the Beverly Hills Cachet Service of Chicago. It was a lithograph, and this company produced cachets from 1932 until this issue in 1937, only a period of 5 years. Next. I love this cachet. It's all hand painted. It's very colorful, and it shows where the colonists landed. Remember the first slide I showed you shows you in much more of a fancy woodcut, Roanoke Island right off the Outer Banks. As I note here, the ship's pilot refused to let them back on board. They were forced to remain at Roanoke. The artist here was a fairly famous artist, Alberta Jean Berryhill, and this is hand painted. She was an assistant librarian in Indianapolis. And I have a few other cachets, or I've seen a few other cachets that she's done. And they're simple, they're colorful, and I enjoy them very much. Next. Another hand-painted, you might say somewhat crude, but hand-painted cachet. This is her birth. A lot of the cachets highlighting her birth have storks in them, and this one's no exception. You can see the stork carrying the baby in the I don't know what that is. It's some sort of like a diaper. And she was the daughter of Ananias and Eleanor Dare, and as I mentioned before, granddaughter of the Governor White. This was another famous artist, Mildred Laws, hand-drawn, hand-colored, and she's from Norton, Kansas. And this was interesting. This cover was sent to from Manteo to Anaconda, Montana. I'll have to look up where that is. I do not know. Next. This is a lovely cachet by probably the most famous cachet maker of all time, Dorothy Knapp. She was wonderful. Elegant, beautifully colored, beautifully designed. And this one is courtesy of Doug Weiss, who found this unique cachet in a large group of Dorothy Knapp's that he was able to get his hands on. And of course, he called me, but of course, he also charged me an arm and a leg, but that's fine. She was a teacher in Rhinebeck, New York, and a pioneer in hand-painted cachets. She created cachets from 1932 to 1953. Some of her older cachets were not put on in period, but put on afterwards. This cachet is almost certainly unique. It better be, considering that I paid for it as if it were. And I'll talk to Doug if I find another one. Next. She was baptized on August 24th, 6 days after she was born, and christened on Roanoke Island. There are about 3 cachets that illustrate her baptism. And one was done by Roy Hubbard, who was lithographed. And he had done some great first cachets on the Farley issues, and they're considered some of the finest cachets ever done. Again, a Philadelphia connection. He did these on a small printing press in his basement. For only about a year after this, for less than a year after this cachet was printed. Next, please. Now, as I said before, because they didn't have enough food, John White had to return to England for supplies. He left shortly after Virginia Dare was born. This is one of the few cachets I've found that, and it's unique, at least as far as I'm concerned, that shows him leaving. You can see Virginia Dare, her father and mother on the right, and her grandfather on the left, and the ship that he was about to take back to England in the middle. Pretty cachet. And it's, again, it's a hand-drawn in pen and ink. Next. Now, it took him a long time to get back because England was in the midst of a war with Spain, so he didn't get back for 3 years. And when he got back, the place was in ruins. This cachet depicts Indians carrying away what might have been Virginia Dare, but it certainly was a child. It was done by an unknown artist in 3 different color combinations. Again, the people may have been captured or killed, but reading about this more recently, there's a suggestion that there was evidence that they ended up on the Indian settlement on what's now Cape Hatteras. There's another place they may have been as well, but we can all hope that they weren't all killed and they survived, even though not on Roanoke Island. Next, please. As I said, John White's return was delayed for 3 years. One of the things he found, besides the ruins, was a tree with the word Croatoan carved in it. This was the name of a native tribe on an island south of Roanoke. So it's possible that instead of going to Cape Hatteras, to Hatteras Island, they ended up on that island south of Roanoke. But again, it's a mystery that was probably not going to be solved soon. This is a very lovely cachet done in thermography, where they do the cachet in various inks, and then they use heat to fix and raise the ink. So you can tell because these inks are raised, you can feel it with your hand. Next. So did she ever grow up? Who knows? I wasn't there, and neither were you. We only know her life. We're only certain that her life she existed for 9 days. But as you might expect, there are a lot of cachet makers that try to illustrate her, what she might have looked as a young girl. This one is particularly nice. It's not only done by a great cachet maker, Mildred Austin Smith, it's hand-drawn and hand-painted, but it's actually sent to Korea, not the most common destination for any U.S. mail in 1937. Next. So I mentioned that some of the very nice cachets are done entirely in words, but some of them are done in a very artistic manner. This one was done by George Laffert, also a well-known cachet maker. It's all hand drawn. Even the lettering is hand drawn. It looks printed, but it's not. Lafferty liked a balanced look. So as you can see, he has a block on the right and two even columns on the left that perfectly balance off that block. It's an absolutely lovely cachet. Next, please. So then there are a number of memorials on cachets commemorating Virginia Dare. And this is one. There is a bunker and a sort of a tombstone on the site that has been renovated down in Roanoke Island. And this is a lovely hand-painted one by another famous cachet artist, Virginia Seath. She had 4 different cachets for this issue when she was only 17 years old. These are all inks or watercolors. Again, absolutely beautiful cachets. Next. Now, I have more covers in my exhibit that don't fit into this. Some didn't fit the thematic flow, so I think I call them odds and ends. Some were sent to foreign destinations and they're segmented. They're put in a separate set. There are general purpose cachets that could be used with any stamp. There are corner cards issued by businesses. And then you have the second day of use, usually Washington, D.C. And for a number of cachets are done both on the first and second day of use. But now we head into one of my favorite parts, the postal history of the stamp. Next. When I first showed it, my judge, Charles Verge, you may know who he is. I was very complimented when he said it one of the best usage sections of any first day exhibit he's seen. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was nice of him to say that. So here we start with domestic mail, domestic service mail. It's 3 cents per ounce. And this is a very nice cover with an 18-cent cover, a 6-tuple rate with 2 Virginia Dare stamps for the first 10 cents, and then a 3 cent and a 5 cent for the rest of the 8 cent. And by the way, notice the 5 cent stamp is not baby blue, it's ultramarine, which shows you the difference in what FDR wanted to see. Now, another cool part is this stamp. This cover contains seeds, grain. Now, unfortunately, the grain is no longer in there, or I would, might be even cooler to be able to put that in my exhibit. Next. Here we have a couple different domestic airmail. The top one is a bit unusual. It's a domestic airmail postal card. It required 6 cents, so 1 cent plus the Virginia Dare stamp was perfect for this. Postal cards are not common. And the second one is also not terribly common, but it's not the typical airmail stamp, even if it is the typical airmail rate of 6 cents. Because while we paid 6 cents inside the US, overseas military personnel also were allowed to use domestic mail, domestic rate. And this one went from I should have checked to find out where that APO was from. It was, but it went to Minnesota. Next, please. Here we have a couple of special types of handling. The top one is special delivery. And special delivery itself is not unusual, but it's not a regular intercity letter. It's a local letter. So instead of having the 2 Virginia Dare stamps plus a 3 cent stamp, it has a 2 cent stamp. The bottom one is registered mail, 21 cents. The first 15 cents was the registration fee. 3 cents was for the first class mail rate, and they had to add an extra 3 cents to boost the indemnity from $0 to $5 to $5 to $25. This allows me to mention that the best material in a first day cover exhibit should have as many Virginia Dare, many of the focus stamps as possible. This one, I'm fortunate enough to have 20 out of the 21 cents is in Virginia dealer stamps. That's what I look for. I keep trying to upgrade my material to include more and more Virginia dealer stamps. Next. This is one of the gems of my exhibit. If people here know Bob Roof down in Delaware, he collects special handling. I could probably charge him whatever I wanted for this cover. It's an incredible cover. In 28, the special handling used to treat fourth class mail like first class mail. After July 1st, 28, they started treating it as special delivery, which meant rapid delivery to its destination, destination post office, but it was not delivered upon arrival, but it was delivered in a normal fashion. It's a complicated rate. This is $1.81. The package was mailed with special handling service for a 44-pound package sent to a Zone 4 destination 300 to 600 miles away. 10 cents for the first pound, plus 3.5 cents per each additional pound, plus 20 cents special handling. The reason it was so heavy is this was a card affixed to a box that carried live chicks. And the card, it was noted that please cancel them carefully because the wife of the person who's receiving this, my wife rather, is a stamp collector, and she'd like to get this back in good condition. So very, very cool cover. And again, one of the gems of my exhibit, and it's about as large as you might think it is from looking at it. Next. Now we'll go into the foreign section. Let's go to the northern southern borders. I picked covers to show as much as possible. This is a cover to Canada on top, registered return receipt, airmail, and special delivery. So it's got about everything there. Airmail was 6 cents, 15 cents was registry of a foreign mail, 10-cent return receipt, and 20-cent special delivery for a total of 51 cents, I believe. The bottom one is airmail special delivery to Mexico. And it was 20 cents for the air and 20 cents special delivery. And it was nice to have 6 Virginia Dare stamps on it. Next. Now we go south to the islands, Bermuda and Jamaica. The top one is a nice, simple, but very pretty airmail cover. 10 cents for ½ ounce. Very clean cover to Bermuda. The bottom one is also a simple registered cover bearing only Virginia Dare stamps, paying 5 cents surface and 15-cent foreign registry fee with 4 Virginia Dare stamps. Next, there's a mistake here. Somehow I had the same Bermuda cover on top of both slides. So ignore that and we'll focus on the bottom cover. That was sent to Denmark, so at least we get to Europe. And it's air and surface. Now, sometimes you had air all the way. Sometimes you had air partway and surface the rest. Sometimes you had surface partway and air the rest. This one was airmail to New York and then took a boat, the Normandy, to Denmark. And it was that's a special rate for a letter up to 1 ounce for sent between 2 UPU countries. So it was a cheap way of getting it a good distance. Now, I have this suspicion this is possibly a philatelic cover because of that please cancel lightly cancel, but it also has 2 other blue directional cancels, and it might be that they just didn't want the cover damaged. So I'm not gonna assume it was philatelic. Next. Now we go south to the Belgian Congo, a great destination. This is another combination of air and surface mail, but the reverse. It was surface to New York, surface mail and then airmail to South Africa, to Leopoldville, Belgian Congo. In this case, it was a 45-cent rate, not the cheap 8 cents. It was a 1 ounce, 0 to 1 ounce letter, 20 cents per half ounce. Actually, this is again a 1 ounce letter. So it's two units of 0 to a half ounce. So 20 times 2 plus 5 for the surface rate for 45 cents. And the fact that it was a double weight letter is probably the reason it didn't get the 8 cent special rate. But I'm not, don't take that to the bank. Next, please. Here's a lovely letter to Palestine. Not only is it a great destination, but it's a supplementary mail cover. New York was really where most supplementary mail came from. Supplementary mail was used when you couldn't drop it off at the post office and you had to leave it somewhere between the post office and the docks. I'm not sure whether it was someplace right outside the post office or whether you took it to the docks and posted it there. But the charge was a doubling of the initial rate. So the initial rate was a 5 cent rate. So the supplementary mail rate in total was 10 cents. Again, an unusual cover to Palestine. Next, please. Another wonderful cover, very unusual cover, not only in its destination, but in its type. Pitcairn Island brings up a lot of history. And this was an international parcel post piece. This was probably clipped off the package wrapping. And you can see the parcel post sticker. And it was a 14-cent rate. And here we have a 9 cent and a 5 cent stamp. And this again is one of the joys of my exhibit. I love as a postal historian, I love unusual items. I love unusual destinations. And I was very happy to be able to find this one. Next. Usually I have a picture of Porky Pig saying that's all, folks, but I thought I'd be a little classier here. Again, I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. You know, you've been with us a long time, and all I can say is you just reload. Keep coming up with new and great stuff to share with us. So we
Thank you
for that. That Belgian cup, no, never mind. I think I answered it about the rate. I was thinking that seemed pretty cheap for a pound, 14 cents to go halfway around the world, but that was the rate.
Once they got it going, momentum carried it.
Yeah.
For all you physicists, physics people out there.
Uh-huh. Folks, questions?
Mark,
This is my
it's Stephen. A couple of things. First of all, on the Normandy cover where you said you suspect it could be philatelic, the one thing you left out was the fact that Mr. Pade, A.E. Pade, was a stamp dealer. So,
Is that Steve Rod?
yes,
Figured it was probably you. Who else would know he was a stamp dealer?
I wanted you to know he was a stamp dealer.
Okay, well, I'll change my presentation to include that. Thank you.
And one more thing, which I didn't understand, you mentioned that she was used as a 6 cent rate, and the 6 cent rate was December 41 to July 46. Wouldn't some people say that was out of period for her use?
Yeah, it was. I mean, out of period issues are sort of interesting.
Right,
Generally, I look at out of period as anything after a year,
right.
especially when you're, if it were a 3 cent stamp, I would definitely feel that way because they continue to produce different 3 cent stamps. This was not. This was a 5 cent stamp. And I think it took a lot longer before they produced the next 5 cent stamp. So the in period took a little longer. But then when you're looking at finding unusual uses, like a military use of the domestic airmail rate, I have to admit I stretched that a bit. If I can find one that's earlier, I'll use it.
Okay. And finally, I have a global question about the exhibit and about first day cover collecting and first day cover exhibiting. It happens, and I shouldn't, and I won the grand award at the first day cover show many years ago
Oh,
with 7 frames of the white plain sheet of first day covers.
mhm.
And the thing that fascinated me about what you said in your mission for the statement for the exhibit is that an exhibitor has to try to show as many first cliches of cliche designers as possible.
Right.
My question, very with great humility and humble, is isn't a lot of the 17, not a lot of the 17, but some of the 17 that you showed just collectors doing their own thing on one cover, as
No,
opposed to be calling a cliche maker? That's what
No.
I want to talk about.
no, I don't believe that. I think if you look at the first caches, they were all from people. First of all, some of them did multiple caches for the Virginia Deer stamp.
Wait. So that's great. The answer to my question is it's a first cachet because there were second cachets of different stamps.
Yes,
Or
there were
was-
these people sometimes did caches for several years. This just happened to be the first year they were doing them.
That's very helpful to me. That's what I wanted to know. So this wasn't just one odd cover by a collector,
No,
because with the white plain sheet, we had dozens and dozens of covers where a collector just designed a cover. And that was not like a first cachet. It was just a stamp collector designing an envelope.
well, that could be a separate section, I guess. But you're right. That's not what we call first caches. If it's a
Okay.
first cache, there has to be a second cache.
Beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank
More questions, folks?
Hey,
By the
Mark,
way, if you go on the AAPE website, there are several very, very good first day cover exhibits shown there. Maybe the best of them is Tony Dewey's first day cover exhibit on the Connecticut Tercentenary, which won the Brett Cup
Yes.
earlier this year.
Gorgeous exhibit.
Mark, this is Lou. I have a question.
Sure, Lou.
I have quite a few Virginia Dare stamps. They all seem to be the same, the kind of a washed out look, if I could use that,
Yeah.
except one that I found that on one of your covers, the Virginia Dare stamp is next to an airmail stamp, and the color of the Virginia Dare stamp is the color of that airmail stamp. Did you find in your research like one or two came through with a different?
Well, let's see if we
color?
can find that. Let's see if we can find that.
Would it
No,
be
can you-
after this or before? Would it be after this?
No, next slide. Are you talking about the one on the bottom?
No, keep going. It was an airmail stamp. It was the keep going, Paul. Here it is. You see
No,
that?
that's not the same color.
You see that?
Yeah, but it's not
color-
the same. It's not the same color. That's an ultramarine.
As I was saying, I have maybe 50 or 60 copies of the Virginia Dare stamp,
Mhm.
and they all have that kind of, I called it a washed out look of of color,
The
except
pale.
one that I found,
Okay.
and it's more of that color in the airmail stamp.
Well, mistakes happen.
Is that something that it just, I don't even know, is it actually a mistake, or is it just it's been preserved better, or
It's an oddity. It's essentially a mistake. If FDR saw that, he would have fired the guy.
okay?
Because these are pale baby blue in color. Now, I agree. Once in a while, I see a stamp that's a little darker, which meant they mixed the ink poorly for
Okay,
that batch.
that was my question. It just seems like the majority of them all have that kind of a baby blue washed out look.
Right.
and this one sticks out like a sore thumb. And I was wondering if that's something that you've seen, or it's just one of the oddities when, like you say, in the printing process, the ink was remixed and didn't come out
Yeah,
quite.
you may see them, but you don't see them often at all. Once in a I don't know.
Gotcha.
So
Thanks, Mark.
you're welcome.
Other questions, folks? Comments?
Hey, Mark, do you really want to know where Anaconda, Montana is?
Where is it? I don't know Montana, so if you told me, I still wouldn't know.
Okay, well, it's off Route 90, northwest of Butte and southwest of Missoula.
Oh, I know Butte and I know Missoula. And I have
It's
Google.
right off of I-90.
I gotta look at Google Maps to know, get a better sense. I have one of the poorest sense of directions of anyone you'd know. I can get lost in a closet.
No, wait a minute. I've met you in State College. I know Philly. It's not that hard to get lost in Philly.
Oh,
And I'm from Reading.
yes, it is. The streets, William Penn designed the city correctly. The streets go north, south, and east, west. If you want to get lost, try walking around in Boston.
Yeah.
The
I've
streets
been to
are
Beantown many
all
times.
cow paths.
Or London.
Or London.
Yeah. Hey, Mark,
Yes.
when you got a couple questions, when you chose the Virginia Dare stamp, were you aware of the extent of the caches, or did that come as a surprise as you got into it?
No,
And how long have you been putting this
probably
collection together?
10 years maybe. I'd have to go back and figure and check to say when I first showed this. 8 to 10 years. I never thought one way or the other how many caches I might run into, although, you know, if you look at Malone, which is the Bible for this stuff, there are lots of stamps that have a lot of caches. So the fact that we had a lot of caches, I bet you if I didn't look too far, I could find a stamp that has even more.
Okay.
And the reason I chose this was that a lot of the other stamps in the 30s, which I sort of like that era, it wasn't so early, they were very difficult to find, and it wasn't so late that they weren't interesting. This was, again, it was an unusual stamp. A lot of them, first, I think the Battle of Burgoyne, is that a red and black stamp? I thought I was going to collect that, and then I found somebody who was collecting it. Couldn't find anybody who was collecting this, so I wouldn't have to bid against somebody. And I just liked the fact that it was a very unusual stamp.
Mm-hmm. It's got a nice history to it. So,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
That's one of the best things about collecting stamps, which I'm sure all of you know. You learn a lot of history in a fairly short period of time.
Yeah, Mark, we've had a couple first day presentations, one on the GAR issue at the last
Kathy?
the Civil War.
Is that
getting-
Kathy Johnson?
with us? No, our Mr. Plunkett in our club did it.
Okay, because Kathy collects both of them, the GAR and the UCV.
Okay, does both. Well, yeah, he does both. He was with us earlier. I can't tell if he's with us now. And then Nick Ace did West Point. And like tonight, I'm just surprised how many caches are out there. Quite a few.
In Nick's exhibit, there's a nice cachet done by George Laffert. Remember the first one I show you that words tell the story with the beautifully done hand
Yeah.
words on one side and the block of four. He has a beautiful Laffert cachet in his exhibit as well.
Okay, I'll look back at that. Yeah. Yeah, we've been trying I've been trying for years to get a speaker on, collecting first day covers, because we all have so many, there's not a lot of interest, and I'm hoping I could get somebody to light a fire under us, how to look at what we have and what we could do with it, because people are interested in these talks, they do well. So maybe we could do something. And I've been trying for 3 years and haven't been able to do it. I'm getting a couple of our club members who are going to be at GAS to go to the first day cover booth. And what can you guys do? We're a big club. I'm sure you could use the notoriety. Let's see if we can get something together. There's so much to
Yeah.
it.
If you at gas, I haven't shown this for a while. The last time I showed this maybe a couple years ago. I finally got a large gold from Jay Stotts.
Mhm.
And I sort of been scared to show it again because you don't always stay where you get.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of sinking below that 90-point level.
Yeah.
But Tony Dewey told me that they needed first day material for gas. So
Okay.
this full exhibit will be at gas.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Well,
not going to go anywhere, but it'll be there.
other questions, folks? Mark, you've given us permission to post your PowerPoint on our website and the video.
Certainly.
Good,
Certainly.
okay. I will get that material to the website.
But post it under anonymous, please. I'm just kidding.
And folks, any other questions before we move on then?
No, that
Well,
was
thank you, Mark,
excellent.
very much. I hope you stay with us for the rest of the night. We really enjoyed it. And I'll send you